Welcome to Bookish Dives. You can think of this as your personal book club, but we have a lot more insightful conversation. You bring the reading list, and we bring the expert analysis, those ah-ha-ha moments.
Yeah, we're your guides to the most fascinating ideas, helping you unlock the knowledge and maybe even change the way you see the world.
For our very first deep dive, we're tackling Seth Godin's Linchpin, Are You Indispensable? You know that book about standing out in a world that seems to want everyone to fit in?
Yeah, it's definitely a timely one, especially with so much talk about AI and, the changing landscape of work these days.
Right, so you're curious about this whole linchpin idea. Does it actually apply to you? And if so, how do you actually become one? We're going to unpack all of that, starting with the big picture Godin paints, the changing world of work. He says that this old factory model, clock in, follow the rules, clock out, is basically falling apart.
It is fascinating how he uses that analogy to highlight the shift, the decline of manual labor jobs, the rise of globalization and outsourcing. It all points to the same thing. Simply following instructions isn't enough anymore.
It makes you think about all those articles about robots taking over jobs. Is Godin saying we all need to become like artists or something to survive?
Well, not literally artists, but he does argue that we need to tap into that artism mindset, the part of us that's creative, that sees problems as opportunities, that connects with people on a human level. That's where the linchpin comes in.
Okay, so let's break down this whole linchpin idea. He says it's the person who's indispensable, the one who makes a real difference. But what does that actually look like, in practice?
Godin uses some great examples in the book, like the Trader Joe's employee who goes above and beyond to help customers find exactly what they need, or the airline gate agent who turns a potentially frustrating travel delay into a positive experience.
Those are great examples. It's like they're not just doing their jobs. They're bringing something extra, something human to the situation.
Exactly. And that extra is what makes them stand out, what makes them valuable. They're solving problems, they're seeing things others miss, and they're building, genuine connections with people.
So it's not just about skills, it's about attitude, about how you approach your work.
Precisely. It's about bringing your full self to the table and not being afraid to let your, unique talents and personalities shine through. Which brings us to another key point Godin makes. He believes that everyone has this genius within them, but we've been conditioned to suppress it.
That's a little disheartening. So how do we break free from that conditioning? How do we tap into our inner genius?
Well, he argues that traditional systems like schools and some workplaces often reward conformity over creativity. They want us to fit in, to follow the rules, to not rock the boat.
It's almost like we're trained to become those cogs in the machine instead of the linchpins that hold everything together.
Exactly. And fear plays a big role in that. Fear of standing out, fear of failure, fear of rejection. It keeps us from taking risks and expressing our true selves.
So how do we overcome that fear? Is it just about being more courageous?
Courage definitely plays a role, but it's also about shifting our mindset. It's about recognizing that our unique quirks and perspectives are actually our strengths, not our weaknesses.
He also has a really interesting perspective on art, which he says isn't just painting or music. It's anything that creates a change in someone else.
I love that definition. It opens up the possibility of art to so many different fields and professions. It could be a well-crafted email, a thoughtful conversation, even a brilliant solution to a tricky problem.
So the medium doesn't matter as much as the intent and the impact. It's about creating something that makes a difference.
Exactly. And this connects to the linchpin idea in a really powerful way. Godin suggests that true artistry involves giving gifts of effort, creativity, and genuine caring.
He uses the example of David at Dean and DeLuca, who didn't just see his job as selling cheese, but as creating an experience, giving a gift to each customer.
That's a great example of how a seemingly ordinary job can be transformed into something extraordinary when you approach it with a linchpin mindset. These gifts build connections, they create value, and ultimately they make you indispensable.
This is all starting to make sense, but I have to admit it's a little daunting. There's no step-by-step guide to becoming a linchpin, is there?
That's true. There's no magic formula, but that's also what makes it so exciting. It's about making choices, about challenging the status quo, about leading with your art, whatever form that takes.
So it's more about a shift in perspective, a change in attitude, than following a specific set of rules.
Exactly. It's about embracing the unknown, trusting your instincts, and being willing to make a difference. And that ties into one of Godin's most powerful concepts, shipping. He uses this metaphor to describe the act of putting your work out into the world, even if it's not perfect.
Okay, I get the fear of putting yourself out there, but why is shipping so important?
Well, think about it. If you're constantly striving for perfection, you might never actually finish anything. You'll get stuck in that cycle of editing and refining, and your work will never see the light of day.
That makes sense. But what about the fear of criticism or even failure?
Those are valid fears, but Godin argues that they're often what holds us back from achieving our full potential. He says that every time you ship something, you learn something new, you build confidence, and you get one step closer to mastering your craft.
So it's about embracing that iterative process, making adjustments along the way rather than getting paralyzed by the need to get everything perfect from the start.
Exactly. And it's not just about creative endeavors like writing or art. This shipping mentality applies to any field where you're trying to solve problems, innovate, or create value.
So whether you're designing a product, leading a team, or even just responding to a customer inquiry, the key is to take action and make things happen.
Precisely. And by shipping consistently, you start to build momentum. You create a body of work and you become known for your ability to deliver results.
Okay, that's starting to click for me. But Godin also emphasizes the importance of seeing clearly, right? What exactly does he mean by that?
It's about being able to perceive the world as it is without letting your own biases, fears, or preconceived notions cloud your judgment.
So it's about being objective, being able to step back and see the bigger picture.
Yes, and it can be incredibly challenging because it often means confronting uncomfortable truths, challenging assumptions, and even questioning the status quo.
And that takes a certain level of self-awareness, doesn't it? Being able to identify those biases and blind spots that we all have.
Absolutely. It also means being open to feedback, even if it's critical. You have to be willing to hear what others have to say, even if it's not what you want to hear.
So it's not about having all the answers, it's about being open to learning and growing.
Exactly. It's about being a lifelong learner, constantly seeking out new information, experimenting and refining your understanding of the world.
This all ties back to that artist mindset we were talking about earlier, doesn't it? Being open to experimentation, being willing to fail, and constantly looking for ways to improve your craft.
Absolutely. And in a world that's changing so rapidly, that adaptability and that willingness to learn and evolve are more essential than ever.
It's about seeing change not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Which brings us to another concept Godin talks about, emotional labor. I've heard this term before, but I'm not sure I fully grasp it.
It's about managing your own emotions and the emotions of others, especially in the context of work and relationships. Think empathy, self-awareness, communication skills, and the ability to navigate complex social situations.
So it's those soft skills that are becoming more and more important in today's world.
Exactly. And Godin argues that linchpins are often highly skilled in this area. They can build trust, inspire others, resolve conflicts, and create positive work environments.
They're the people who can bring a team together, make people feel heard and valued. It's almost like another form of artistry, using these intangible skills to create a positive impact.
You're right. It's about recognizing that our interactions with others are just as important as the work we produce. And it's a skill that can be developed just like any other.
This is all really resonating with me. It seems like being a linchpin isn't about some innate talent. It's about making choices, adopting certain mindsets, and really honing those essential human skills. But how do you actually start? Godin doesn't really give a roadmap, does he?
He doesn't, but he does offer some guiding principles. One of the most important, as we've discussed, is giving gifts.
Right, that idea that true art is a form of gift-giving. But what does that look like in a practical sense?
It's about bringing that spirit of generosity to everything you do, whether you're creating a product, providing a service, or simply interacting with a colleague.
So putting in that extra effort, thinking about the impact you're having on others, going above and beyond what's expected.
Exactly. And these gifts don't have to be grand gestures. It could be a thoughtful email, a helpful suggestion, or even just a listening ear.
It's those small acts of kindness and genuine connection that can make a big difference.
And those small acts can have a ripple effect, creating a more positive and productive environment for everyone.
This is all making me think about the bigger picture. Godin argues that the world has fundamentally changed, hasn't he? That the old rules of work no longer apply.
Absolutely. He points to globalization, technology, and the rise of the knowledge economy as major disruptors. It's not enough to simply follow instruction or do rote tasks anymore.
So what does that mean for the average person trying to navigate this new world of work?
It means we need to adapt. We need to focus on developing those skills that can't be easily automated or outsourced: creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, emotional intelligence.
Those uniquely human skills that make us valuable.
Exactly. And this is where the linchpin path becomes so compelling. It's about investing in yourself in those qualities that make you indispensable.
But it's also about challenging the status quo, isn't it? Godin encourages us to question those traditional notions of work and success.
Absolutely. He argues that the old rules no longer apply, that we need to create our own paths and define success on our own terms.
which can be scary, right? Stepping outside of your comfort zone, taking risks, potentially making waves.
It can be, but it's also incredibly empowering. You're taking control of your own destiny, shaping your own future.
And that's where the idea of the resistance comes in, isn't it? That inner voice of fears and self-doubt that tries to hold us back.
That's right. Godin says that the resistance is always going to be there, whispering those negative thoughts, trying to keep us from achieving our full potential.
So how do we overcome it?
He offers several strategies, but one of the most important is simply to acknowledge it, name it, recognize it for what it is.
Because once you can see it clearly, you can start to develop strategies to overcome it.
Exactly. And one of the most effective strategies is action. Do the work despite the fear. Ship it.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Surround yourself with people who support you, who believe in your vision.
That's crucial. We all need that encouragement, especially when we're facing those inevitable moments of doubt.
Godin also talks about seeing the world as it is right, being able to perceive reality without letting our biases and fears distort our view.
He does, and this is where critical thinking becomes so important. We need to be able to question our assumptions, examine evidence, and be open to different perspectives.
It's about being intellectually honest, even when it's uncomfortable.
And it's also about being willing to learn and grow, to admit when we're wrong, and to adjust our course accordingly.
That ties back to the idea of being a lifelong learner, always seeking new knowledge, challenging your beliefs, and expanding your understanding of the world.
Exactly, and that's a key characteristic of the Linchpin. They're not afraid to embrace the unknown, to ask questions, to push the boundaries of what's possible.
And in a world that's changing so rapidly, that kind of mindset is more valuable than ever. It's like he's saying we all have this potential to be linchpins, but it's up to us to choose that path.
That's exactly it. It's not about waiting for someone to give you permission or tell you what to do. It's about recognizing that power within yourself and then taking action.
So it's not a question of, am I a linchpin? It's more like, do I choose to become one?
That's a great way to put it. It's about making a conscious decision to embrace those qualities that make a linchpin: the generosity, the artistry, the willingness to challenge the status quo.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Is there a final provocative thought we can leave our listener with? Something to really ponder as they navigate their own linchpin journey?
I think the most powerful takeaway from Linchpin is this: the world is desperately hungry for your gifts.
Wow, that's a really powerful statement. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind, to feel like our work is just a means to an end. But Godin reminds us that it can be so much more. It can be a way to make a real difference, to connect with others on a deeper level, to leave a positive mark on the life.
So our final thought for our listeners is this: what gifts do you bring to the world? What change do you want to create?
Don't wait for permission or for someone to tell you what to do. The world needs your unique voice, your unique talents, your unique perspective.
Embrace that linchpin potential that's within you. The world is waiting. Thanks for joining us on this first bookish dive, 30 Sea Teeth.